Hey guys, welcome to the review video for our second Gemara test of the year. It's on units 4 through 6. A lot of review material available on Haiku. Check it out there. So I hope you guys are excited as I am. Let's begin. Okay, let's start with unit 4. Unit 4 begins at the bottom of Daf Chav Vav Amud Bet. Near the bottom of Daf Chav Vav Amud Bet. We have two units here. They go over to Daf Chav Zayin Amud Aleph. Unit 4 is going to be right here. Unit 5 is going to go down to the top. Is going to go over to the top of Chav Zayin Amud Aleph, and then the bottom of Chav Zayin Amud Aleph. So where Unit 6 is going to be. I'm going to begin by reading and translating it, and then we're going to go over to a flowchart just to map it out, and then we'll finish up the translation with another flowchart, and then I'll move on to the next unit. So we start with what we would call Memra de Rabba, Rabba's Memra, his halachic statement. It's called a Memra as opposed to a Mishnah or Braita because it's from an Amora. The Amar Rabba, and Rabba said the following: Zara kli me rosh agag, if somebody threw an object off a roof, v'hayu tachtav, there were beneath it, meaning it was going to land on karim uksatot, pillows or cushions. Ba'acher, someone else came along, uslakan, and removed those cushions, causing the object to fall and break. Oh, or kadam, he went ahead, meaning the person who was the zorek, the person who threw it went ahead, uslakan, and removed them himself, intentionally expecting it to break. Patur. That person who threw it is still patur, even though they are the one who caused the entire thing to happen. So just to map this out again. So here's our situation. We have an object that's thrown off a roof and then it's aimed to land on pillows. Someone else comes along and pulls the pillow away. So you have one person who throws it, and their force is really what breaks the object, but they were intending it to land on pillows. And someone else came and pulled the pillow away, causing the object to break, but it's indirect. Therefore, everyone is patur in that case. And even if the thrower himself is the one who pulls the pillows away, so he was involved in the entire, again, it's somebody else's object, doesn't belong to this person, they took it without permission, or they're borrowing it, whatever it may be, and they pull the pillows away, and they're the one who threw it, still everyone, in this case there's only one person, the person is patur, even though he did it all by himself. The reason for this is, we'll get to this a little later, that neither of these acts are acts of damage, but we'll get to that a little bit later, or pretty soon, but later than now. Right. Let's stop talking and move on. So now the Gemara wants to know, well, what's the reason for Rabba's ruling? Why is the person who throws it patur and the person who pulls the pillow away patur also? Even if the same person throws it and pulls the pillow away, why is this person patur? Then they end up breaking the object. So my tama, what is the reason? This is a phrase that we've seen over and over again. My tama is up here. We have to see my tama here. You have to know that on the test, so just pay attention. My tama, what's the reason for Rabba's ruling? He says, but idna deshadye, at the time he removed them, the person removed the pillows, psuke mifsake, it was completed gire, the force. The force had been used up, it is completed, had it stopped. Now what does that mean exactly, that the force had stopped? So this is the Gemara's way of saying that neither act that was done was an act of damage. Why is that? So let's go take a look at the other flowchart. So neither is considered an act of damage, meaning in order to be chayav, you have to do what's called a ma'aseh hezek, a true act of damage. So what are the two acts that caused the object to break? It was the throwing of the object and then the pulling of the pillow. Well, pulling the pillow away is easily understood why it's not a true act of damage, because you're not directly damaging. You're not actually putting any force onto the object. Instead, you're just pulling whatever was going to land on away. Throwing the object is not an act of damage, which is a little more complicated. Why not? It's your force that breaks it, even if you pull the pillows away on purpose, because when the object is released, it was aimed to land safely. When this person threw an object off a roof, at the time the object left that person's hand, it was angling to land on a pillow. It was going to land totally safely until the pillow was moved away. Therefore, that actual physical act of throwing can't be an act of damage, because the physical act of throwing was one that was not going to break the object. So since a person did not do an act of damage by pulling the pillow away or by throwing an object that when let go was aimed to land, therefore the person who threw it is patur, even if they knowingly threw the object and knowingly pulled the pillow away. It's a loophole that because they did not do an act of damage, they figured out a way they wouldn't have to pay. So let's just go back and read this once more from the top. V'amar Rabba, and Rabba said, Zarak klimi rosh agag, if someone threw an object off a roof, ayu tachtav, there were beneath the karim ksato, pillows or cushions. Ba'acher, someone else came along, uslakan, and removed those pillows. Oh, or kadam uslakan, the person went ahead before the object landed and removed them. Patur. Everyone involved is patur. My tama, what's the reason for this? But idna deshadye, at the time that he removed the psuki mifskei giri, the force had already been completed. Meaning, at the time that the object was removed, the force is gone. So the person throwing the object can't be called someone who does an active damage because the force is gone and the pillow is still there. And the removal of the pillow involves no force. All the force involved in this activity is gone, and the removing the pillow is not force at all. So you can't call that an active damage, and therefore, again, it's a loophole, but the person is patur. Okay, now we move on to Unit 5. Unit 5 again begins on Daf Chaf Vav Amud Bet, the bottom there, but it's going to continue on to Chaf Daf Chaf Zayin Amud Aleph. The Amar Rabbah, so now we have another situation that Rabbah is going to bring up, this one involving murder, and we're going to talk about what the ruling is going to be. In this case, it's actually going to be a machloket. So the Gemara begins, the Amar Rabbah, Rabbah said, Zarak Tinok Mirosh Hagag, if someone threw a child off the top of a roof, and again, we pointed out that the reason why the Gemara uses an example of Rabbah using an example of a child, such a gruesome case, is not, or something that would bother us a lot more than pushing an adult off a roof, is because in order to bring up a halacha that relates to a halacha that can be used in other situations, it has to be clear what we're talking about. So in order to make sure we know we're talking about the halacha related to murder, so we have to make sure that we know there's a murder. So if it's someone like an adult, you could say, oh, maybe they were fighting, we don't really know what's going on in this case, but we know for sure that it's a child, then that's the Rabbah's way of saying that it's a defenseless person. So, V'amar Rabbah, sorry about that. I'll try that again. V'amar Rabbah, and Rabbah said, Zarak Tinok Mirosh Hagag, if somebody threw a defenseless person off a roof, Uba Acher, and someone else came along, V'kiblo, and caught that person Bisayav on a sword. So we have basically two people involved in the murder. The person who threw the attacker who threw the victim off the roof. That their force is what caused them to be impaled on the sword, and we're assuming that the person purposely stuck the sword out to allow this person to be killed. So we have two people involved in a murder. So what's the halacha? Pilokte tzamachloke de Rabbi Yehuda Meteir, between Rabbi Yehuda Meteir and the Rabbanan. Okay, so before we actually discuss it, let's make sure what's going on here. So again, we have this memra de Rabbah. This is a statement of Rabbah because he's an Amora. You have a defenseless person who's caught in a sword. Rabbi Yehuda is going to say one thing, and the Rabbanan are going to say something else. Now, what do Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan say? So we happen to know that Rabbi Yehuda is going. Rabbanan are going to say that everyone, they're both patur, and we know that Rabbi Yehuda is going to say the last person is chayav. But how do we know that? We haven't seen any of that yet. What's Rabbah's proof? Rabbi Yehuda ben Beteira lived way before Rabbah. So how does he know what Rabbi Yehuda ben Beteira would say? So he brings a braita to prove it, that this is correct. De Tanya, as it says in a braita. Now, the dalet is like Tanya, it says in a braita. So the braita is being brought as a proof that we know, that Rabbah knows that Rabbi Yehuda ben Meteir and the Rabbanan would argue. What's the proof? How do we know for sure? Because the braita says the following. Hikausar b'nei adam basar maklot. If 10 people beat somebody with 10 sticks, bein bevarachad, this is the opinion of the Rabbanan, whether it happened at once, bein bezeh achar zeh, whether they beat this person one at a time and they killed the victim, Kulan Paturin. The Rabbanan said that everyone is Patur. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beteira Omer. So now we're in Daf Chazayin. We are now moving over to Daf Chaf Zayin Amar Aleph. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beteira Omer. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beteira says, if they did it all at once, then he agrees that everyone is Patur, because we don't really know who the murderer is. However, Bizeh Achar Zeh, if it's one after another, Ha'acharon Chayav, the last person is Chayav. Why? They brought this person to death, even though that the last time that the person was hit, and they did it one after another, that last person, the fact that he hit the person, he killed the victim, it was aided by the fact that everyone else beforehand also beat this person, so it was much easier to kill him. Either way, since they are the one who brought him to death, that they are and the last person is the one who would be chayav. So again, in a case where everyone beats the person to death, the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda both agree if it was all at once and everyone's patur. But in a situation where you know who went last and who actually caused this person to die directly, so in that case, the last person is chayav according to Rabbi Yehuda Meteira. So similarly in our case, where you have one person pushing the other one off the roof and the other person catching them on the sword, the person who caught them on the sword, we know for sure is the one who made this person die. They might have died anyway. If they wouldn't have put the sword there, but either way, they're the one who actively caused this person to die. So the Rabbanan would still say patur, and Rabbi Yehuda Meteir would say chayav. So even though the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda Meteir were not alive when Rabbah was around, he knew from that braita that he can make an analogy between that braita and our case as well. Just to chart this out. So we start off with Rabbah's statement, the memra de Rabbah, who says that if there's a defenseless person caught on a sword, we have a machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan. Now, how do we know that? Did Tanya, as it says in a braita, if there's a case of mob murder, if they do it all at once, everyone is patur. This is not related to our case. Okay, our case is definitely one after another. What if they are one after another? Now the one after another case is analogous. There's your analogy between, you're comparing those two cases. There's your analogy. So those two cases are the same, right? You have multiple person involved, and we know who the last person was. So just like in this case, Rabbi Yehuda would say chayav, last person chayav. So too here, the last person would be chayav. And just like in this case, the Rabbanan would say patur. So too in our case, they would say that everyone is patur as well. So how did Rabba know that the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda Meteir would argue in this case? Because they argue in this case when it's one after another, which is analogous, and therefore their rulings would apply in the same way in Rabba's case. So now let's read it all together. Rabba said, Zarak tinok mirosh hagag. If a defenseless person is thrown off a roof, uba acher, someone else came along to kiblo b'sef and caught this person on a sword. Piloted would be a machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan. And the Rabbanan. It would be machlok between Yehuda Meteir and the Rabbanan. How does Rabba know this? He lives much later. Ditanya, as it says in a Braita, Hikara sabnei adam basar maklot. If 10 people beat someone with 10 sticks, whether it was one all at once or whether it was one after another, they are all patur. That's the Rabbanan's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda Meteir says, that when it's one after another, the last person is chayav, because they brought this person to death. So therefore, the same way that Rabbi Yehuda Meteir and Rabbi Yehuda Meteira and the Rabbanan would argue in this case, they would also argue in Rabba's case as Arak Tinok Mirosh Hagag B'Achar V'Kabla B'Sayav. So now we know what their rulings would be. Well, what's their reasoning for their rulings? Do we know why Rabbi Yehuda says that the last person can die, the last person is killed, and why the Rabbanan say that no, everyone is patur no matter what? So the Gemara in Sanhedrin, which we're not going to read right now, but we use the Ein Mishpat, not the Ein Mishpat, we use the Masorah Hashas to use the cross reference to find this Gemara. I'm realizing I should have tested you on the Masorah Hashas, but oh well, maybe next time. So where does their reasoning come from? So it comes from a pasuk in the Torah. This is a perfect example of what I taught you guys is called a drasha. Okay? Both the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda Meteira use a drasha. A drasha is when you explain and interpret the words of a pasuk in order to learn something from it. So the Torah tells you that I'm going to just do the English paraphrase, that someone gets a death penalty if you strike kol nefesh of a person. Kol means, we'll see, nefesh means soul. So you strike a person's soul, but why does it say kol nefesh instead of just nefesh adam? Right, someone's soul, not kol, the nefesh of their soul. So Rabbi Yehuda says it's teaching us that any amount of the soul. And we'll start with the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan say kol, like most people define kol, means all of the soul. So when the Torah says you have to do kol nefesh, all of the soul, it means you have to do it all by yourself. So anytime there's somebody else involved, any time that the murder that you commit, even if you're the last one to go, since it involved other people, since you wouldn't have been able to kill this person if not for the other people being involved, you didn't do kol nefesh, all of it, and therefore you are patur. You're only chayiv if you do it all yourself. So now we understand the Rabbanan. Rabbi Yehuda says no, kol nefesh means any. Kol could mean all, and kol could also mean any. Rabbi Yehuda says no, it means any amount of the soul. Meaning, if there's murder involved, you don't have to be the one who did it all yourself. Even if you're the last person to go, and we know that you're the one who did the murder, we can call you the murderer because even though you just did part, kol nefesh means any amount. Therefore, you could be chayav. So now we understand why in our case the Rabbanan would say patur, because you didn't do it all yourself, because either because there was a mob involved, even though you came last, or because someone else pushed them off the roof before the second person caught the defenseless person on the sword. That's what Rabbanan say patur. And again, Rabbi Yehuda would say chayav. No, any amount is fine. If you're the last person, you actually commit the murder. You actually did the actual murder. So therefore, you are going to be chayav. Why? Because you did. As long as there's any amount involved, which you did, therefore you're going to be chayav. Just like that's why it's chayav in our case. And finally, we move on to our last unit, Unit 6, at the bottom of Chav. Again, we're on Daf Chav. We are on Daf Chav Zayin Amud Aleph. Right near the end of the parak, there you see the end of the parak. The entire Unit 6 actually started, Amarav went to the bottom here, but I'm only going to test you guys up until this line over here. So here we have another scenario of Rabbah. We actually have two scenarios. Both involve a victim allowing something to happen to them. In one case, they allow themselves to be murdered. In another case, they allow their stuff to get destroyed. And we'll see what the halacha is. For Amar Rabbah, Rabbah also said, here's another case that Rabbah brings you. Here's another member of Rabbah. Hiniach lo gachel alibo. If somebody placed the kol, he placed on him. That's the way the Rabbah talks, right? He placed a kol on someone else's chest, al libo, on their heart, v'amet, and the person died. Patur, the person who put the kol there is patur, as Rashi points out, because they could have just brushed the kol off, so they really let themselves die. They didn't do a nice. The other person wasn't the attacker, so to speak, wasn't so nice by putting the kol there, but you can't call them a murderer. They would have said, "Hey, you could have easily brushed it off." However, al big dov and itzraf, but if you put it on the person's clothing and their clothing burns, chayav, you have to pay for the damage, even though the person also could have brushed the kol off and saved their clothing from really burning. Still, in that case, you're chayav. Okay, the halacha is different when it comes to damages. You'd be chayav even if the person let the damage done, because you still did the act of damage. But if it's for murder, you're patur, because you can't be called a murderer unless you did not leave the other person any chance. If the person easily could have gotten out of it by brushing the kol off their chest, therefore they're patur. Now here's the more important part in terms of understanding how the Gemara works. Amar Rava, who is Rabba's student, says the following: Tarvai, who both of these, meaning his ruling that you're patur in the murder case and chayav for damages, taninhi, can be taught in Mishnayot, can be proven from Mishnayot. Okay, let's see. Al libo, on his heart, that's referring to the fact that you're patur if you put the kol on al libo, on the other person's heart. Right, there's your al libo there and al libo right there. Okay, so, oops, sorry about that. I'm trying to erase and it's not letting me. There we go. Okay, let's go back here. So again, al libo. So how could you prove that they both can be proven from Mishnayot? Al libo, the on his heart case that you're patur for murder if the person lets it happen. How do you know that? Ditanan, as it says in the Mishnah. Dal means as it says. Ditanan, as. Tanan, it says in the Mishnah. So the Mishnah is being used as proof. What's the proof? Kavash alavatocha, or if you pushed somebody, or surely she trapped somebody in a fire. Olu tochalayim, or underwater. The enu yachol lo misham, they can't get out. Vamein, and they die. Chayav. Okay, you're chayav. You murdered somebody. That is not important for what we're learning here. That's the reisha of this mission. The seifa is what's important. However, dachfu letocha, or dachfo, if you push them as opposed to trap them, you push them into fire, into water. V'yachol lo misham vamein, and they could get out of there, but they die. Then patur, you are not chayav. You're patur from the death penalty. Why are you patur? Since the person could have escaped, you can't say, "Oh, it's your fault. You're the one who really caused the murder to happen." Yes, it wouldn't have happened without you. You're an idiot for putting that person in a situation. You should be punished. But in terms of the death penalty, you cannot get the death penalty because they let themselves die. So again, the same way in this case, they let themselves die. They're patur because yachol alo misham, they could have gotten out. So too, in the case where the person had the kol on their chest and they could have escaped death by pushing the kol off and they didn't, they should also be patur, and Rabba is correct. Big dough. How do you know the clothing that you'd be chayav if you let your clothing burn? Ditanan, because as it says in the Mishnah, if someone says, "Karakshti, rip my clothing," shaver, doesn't sound right, but I'm just going to forget it. Shaver et kadi, break my kad, my jar, and you do so. Chayav, you're chayav to pay. And not liftor, if you made a condition, hey, break my jar and you won't have to pay for it. Rip my clothing and you won't have to pay for it. Then patur. But the important part is the first part. If I tell you, rip my clothing, I tell you, break my jar, and you do it, you're still chayav, even though you had permission. So even though you did not have to let me do that, you gave me permission to do it, and yet the fact that I did it, even though it was with permission, I have to pay. So for sure, in our case, where you put the kol on my chest without permission, but I just sat there letting it happen, and also that's similar to giving permission, you'd also be chayav as well. So we have another proof that Rabba is correct. So Rabba brings two Mishnayot. One for al libo, the fact that Rabba is correct about the heart case, right? Putting the kol in someone's heart, you're patur. And big dough, that if you put it on their clothing, you're chayav. And each one is a proof from the Mishnah, because it says ditnan, as it says in the Mishnah. Those are the Mishnayot that are being brought as proofs. Just to chart this out. So here are the two memrot to Rabba. You put a kol on someone's chest, you're patur. You put a kol on someone's clothing, you're chayav. So the fact that you put your kol on someone else's chest, you're patur, right? How do we know that? So we have a Mishnah, right? Ditnan, as it says, right? That was the word, ditnan. As it says in a Mishnah. And here's Mishnah number one. First, the Mishnah begins with, if a person cannot escape, you're chayav. That is not important for our case. We don't bring proof from there. But where do we bring proof from? The second part. If the person can escape, they are patur. Just like here, they could escape their patur. That's a proof that if you put a kol on someone's chest, they could escape, they're also patur. So that's the proof that Rava brings for Rabba. The second memra de Rabba, or the second part of Rabba's statement, is that if you put a kol on someone's clothing, they let it burn, you're chayav. How do we know that? Well, we have another Mishnah, again, Ditanan, as it says in a Mishnah. If someone says, rip my clothing or break my jar, and you do so, you're chayav. So that's proof that if you put the coal on someone's clothing and they let their clothing burn, similar to giving permission, you'd also be chayav, and now Rabbah is proven correct. So let's just read this one more time, and that'll be it for the video. Rabba said, if you put a coal on someone's heart and they die, they let it happen. They let themselves die. Patur, you are patur from the death penalty, even though you put the coal there. Al bigdo v'nisraf, if you put it on their possessions, on their clothing in this case, v'nisraf, and it burns, they let it burn. Chayav, you still got to pay for the damages, even though they let it happen. Amar Rava says, Tarvayu, both of these rulings that you're patur in the death penalty and chayav when it comes to damages, tanin, it can be tough for Mishnayim. Ali Bo, on the heart case, the death penalty, the murder ruling of Rava that you're patur can be proven ditnan, as it says in a Mishnah. Or if you trapped somebody under fire, or in a fire, or underwater, they could not get out, and they die. They're chayav. That's not the important part. The important part is the seifa. Dachfo, if you pushed him or into a fire, or into water, and they could escape, and yet they still died. They let it happen. Patur, you're patur, and so too in the kol case, you be patur. Big dough. In the clothing case, Ditanan, as it says in a Mishnah, that you're chayav in the case of damages, even though the person let it happen. How do we know that's true? That Rabbah is correct. Ditanan, as it says in a Mishnah. Karak suti, if someone says, rip my clothing, shaver et kadi, break my jar, and they give you permission, and you do so, you're still chayav. You're chayav to pay. Bottom line, you did an act of damage, even though it was allowed. So too, just like in the coal case, if you put a coal on someone's clothing and they let it happen, you're still chayav. Then we see another Rabbah is correct there too. And not liftor, but if you had made a condition, it was on condition, hey, break my jar and you won't have to pay, rip my clothing, you don't have to pay, then patur. But if you just give permission to break, you just give permission to rip, and they do so, then you are chayav. So too, that Rabbah is correct, that in the coal case, you'd also be chayav for letting it burn your clothing. Good luck, everybody. There's a lot of good stuff available on Haiku. Please email me if you have any questions.